What's up, y'all, man? Today we're going to be checking out biggest logistical flex of all time, Berlin Airlift. Right. Hey, y'all know the fat electrician brings it every time. Let's get straight into it, man.
Yes, that time that communists tried to starve an entire city, so America and the UK teamed up to deliver 4.6 billion pounds of food and supplies to that city using nothing but cargo planes. Today we're talking about the biggest economic and logistical flex of all time, America's Operation Vittles and the UK's Operation Plainfield, coming together to be known as the Berlin Airlift. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Henson's Shaving. Okay, here's
y'all want to check it out? It'll be right here. If you guys want to support them, hensonshaving.com/thefatelectrician. Right there at the bottom. Show some love, man. He's great.
Right, important background info. After World War II, the Allied forces took control of Germany, and it was split into pretty much 4 different chunks. The Soviets got a piece, America got a piece, the French and the British both got a piece. Here's a map of that right here. Okay, here's where it gets a little weird. Berlin was also split into 4 equal chunks. The problem with that was Berlin was 100 miles into the Soviet territory, so you have this little tiny speck on the map of British, French, and American territory completely surrounded by the USSR. While that is weird, it wasn't really a problem because right after World War II, everybody was still an ally, so America, the British, and the French had no problems using the roadways and the trains to get food and supplies to their section of Berlin. Now, just so we're all on the same page, Berlin, and essentially all of Germany to a slightly lesser extent, is essentially a third world country at this point in time. Berlin, in particular, has essentially been turned into rubble from Allied bombings. The entire German economy is in the toilet, and all of the German people are not getting a lot of sympathy from the global community because, well, they kind of started it. Now, with the Allied forces in control of Germany, it is their job and their responsibility to help take care of the German people. Now, the Western powers, America, Great Britain, and France, they're all on the same page. They all have the same game plan. They want to go in, render aid in the short term to the German people, then in the long term, help prop up their economy, get them back on their own feet, and then they can leave. The USSR, on the other hand, aka the communists, absolutely hate that idea. The last thing a bunch of communists want is people being able to take care of themselves, so they step in and they're like, no, absolutely not. We're going to build a communist utopia out of this place. So, in order to stop the Western powers from helping Germany, they decide that they're going to print billions and billions of Reichsmarks, the German currency. They devalue the currency so there's so much money that it's no longer a store of value, to the point that it literally takes a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. Because of this, the already struggling German economy completely collapses and a black market sets in, and the new currency for Germany is essentially cigarettes and food. And this goes on for like 2 years with the West trying to negotiate with the USSR on how to proceed. And during that time, the people of Berlin are quite literally starving and freezing to death, with the average Berliner eating less than 1,000 calories a day. Eventually, the West steps in and they're like, fuck it, we're just going to do it without the communists because we have to help these people. So they created a new type of currency for Germany known as the Deutschmark, and it's going to be seen as a real store of value and help rebuild the German economy. The Soviets find out about this and they freak out, basically break all diplomatic communication with the Western powers, and they officially want to break up and just have East versus West, capitalism versus communism, Hungary versus Fed. This is where the Cold War really starts kicking off. And the first ideological battleground of the Cold War is going to be Berlin, because remember, it's 100 miles into Soviet territory and a big chunk of it is still controlled by the Western powers. So the Soviets decide they need to take over that part of Berlin too. They can't have a little speck of capitalism in their communist utopia. Now, luckily for the communists, it's an easy fix. They really don't have to do anything, because the minute the West Berliners see what a communist utopia really looks like, they're going to willfully and freely denounce capitalism and run over and become communists too, right? Wrong. That's never going to happen because communism sucks. It's always sucked and it's always going to suck. So the communists are going to do what they always do. They are going to basically present West Berlin the option: join or we will attempt to kill you. Because if you don't know, that's the dirty little secret to communism. They always talk about seizing the means of production. What they never bother to tell you is that people are also part of that means of production, and they will seize you too. So that's
now, he made a lot of good points. I'm actually shocked I never heard of this, bro. They created a whole new currency, man. That's crazy. I've never heard of another country coming in and making a new currency for your country. That's crazy. Now, two, look at this guy. Look at his shirt, man. Yeah, he's really helping communism, bro. This is communism gets fucked, bro. That's the message he's portraying here. This is funny.
What they do, they attempt to seize West Berlin. They blockade it off from the Western powers. They cut off every road, every railway, and every waterway so that the Western powers cannot get West Berlin food or any other supplies. And then they cut off the power to that section of the city, quite literally freezing and starving them to death until they comply. So obviously this is a diplomatic and humanitarian disaster. All the military leadership runs over to President Truman and they're like, hey, what do you want us to do? Basically, we got three options. Option A, we can start rolling tanks in and kick off World War III right now. Option B, we can just leave the Berlin people there to die. And option C, we can try to fly in as much food and supplies as possible, but getting enough to feed an entire city is basically gonna be impossible. What do you want to do? Now, obviously, I'm paraphrasing a little, but Truman basically said, we're America, we don't start world wars, we just finish them. Also, and I quote, we stay in Berlin. Period. Which narrows it down to one single option. They are going to fly in enough food and enough supplies to try to feed all of West Berlin. Here's the catch with that. The American leadership has absolutely no idea what that's going to take or how to even proceed. So they go to the British government, who has just spent the last decade rationing their own people, and they have a great understanding of what it takes to keep a large population of people fed and warm. So Great Britain crunches the numbers, and they figure to get every single person in West Berlin 1,700 calories a day, it's going to be 1,500 tons of food every single day.
Gosh.
In addition to that, since the power got cut off, they're going to need 2,500 tons of coal and fuel every single day. Okay, 4,000 tons, just so we're all on the same page, that is 8 million pounds of supplies every single day just to keep everyone alive. And the best cargo plane they have to work with at this point in time is the C-47 Skytrain, which has a maximum capacity of 3 tons, meaning that they are going to have to land 1,333 cargo planes into Berlin every single day. To put that into perspective, there's only 1,440 minutes in a day, meaning that one plane has to land every minute and 8 seconds. This is impossible.
Yeah.
Despite that, the newly formed United States Air Force says, hold my nuclear bombs and watch this shit, because on June 26, 1948, 2 days after the Soviet blockade, they launch Operation Vittles, where they are going to try to feed an entire city via cargo plane. 2 days after that, June 28th, the UK says, hey, we're going to help too, and the RAF launches Operation Plainfare, and together this becomes known as the Berlin Airlift, and right out of the gate, it is a complete and utter shit show. They're trying to fly in planes from absolutely everywhere. It is disorganized chaos. There's planes crashing. There's mid-air collisions. It's a complete disaster. And on their best day, they're maybe able to get 1,000 tons of supplies, less than a fifth of what they need. Now, at this point, the conditions in Berlin are getting worse and worse by the day. The communists are essentially laughing at the stupid capitalist pigs, at which point America calls up one of its main characters, a man by the name of General William Tunner.
Imagine being able to build an...
This is actually really sweet though, man.
All right, this is a guy that coordinated all the logistics of getting supplies into China during World War II when they had to fly over the Himalayas. If anybody can unfuck this situation, it's gonna be him. And that's exactly what he does. So General Tunner comes in and he's like, here's the deal. We're gonna fly these planes like we're conducting an orchestra. There's 3 air channels to Berlin. The 2 on the outside are gonna be planes going to Berlin, and the one in the middle is gonna be planes leaving Berlin. For the 2 air channels going into Berlin, we're gonna launch 1 plane every 3 minutes all day, every single day. And those planes are gonna fly at 5 separate altitudes, staggering every single time to give them just enough time to land. The Germans on the receiving end of this are like, we're literally starving to death. We got to help out the Americans and the British with this. So they show up and they start unloading the cargo planes for them. And they get so good at unloading these planes that they can unload all 3 tons of cargo in under 7 minutes and help get the planes turned around and sent back out. And this turns into one of the most beautiful humanitarian moments in human history. There's American and British pilots, aircrew members, mechanics, all just showing up in West Germany without even being called to help with this effort and to fly and repair these planes to keep them going around the clock. And then over in Berlin, the same thing is happening. There's Luftwaffe airplane mechanics showing up to help repair the American and British cargo planes to keep everything running. The 2 sides that were fighting against each other just a few years ago are now working together to save people. Everybody involved in this operation gets so good at what they're doing that the choke point that's holding up even more progress is that they don't have enough airfields to land the planes on. So the Germans straight up build another one. The only problem with that was there was this big ass apartment building in the way, and when the pilots lowered their landing gear would only clear that apartment roof by like 20 feet, which seems like it would be kind of terrifying. So the Germans are like, hey, do you want us to rip that apartment building down? What do you guys want us to do? And the American and RAF pilots are like, bro, we just got done flying in World War II with you guys and the Japanese shooting at us. The apartment's gonna be fine, trust me. And sure enough, they start not only hitting, but exceeding the quota of 4,500 tons a day. And this infuriates the Soviets.
Insane,
this is the biggest economic and logistical flex of all time. It shouldn't even be possible, and yet America, the UK, and the people of West Berlin are somehow pulling it off. At this point, the Soviets decide they have to try to do something to stop this, so they start sending up all their fighter planes to try to mess with all the American and British cargo pilots by flying too close. They're basically trying to mess up air traffic, cause accidents, do anything they can to slow down this logistical miracle. However, it doesn't really work. Why? Because the American and British pilots know that it's basically a bluff, because it's essentially a giant game of fuck around and find out, because if the Soviets actually do anything, it's going to kick off World War III, and at this point in time, America is the only country on the planet that has nuclear bombs and a president that's not afraid to use them. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you that the American and RAF pilots are flying with the confidence of knowing that if one of these Soviets shoots them down, President Truman is going to bitch slap their entire country with the sun. Needless to say, they were unfazed by the Soviet harassment. How unfazed were they? Thank you so much for asking. Cue our next main character, Gail Halverson, aka the Candy Bomber. He was one of the many pilots that was flying supplies into Berlin, and somewhere along the way he decided that he was going to start dropping candy bars with little handkerchief parachutes out of the window of his plane over West Berlin so that the kids could get some candy. And eventually this caught on, and all the kids were waiting where the planes would fly over, hoping that they would get a candy bar. Then the American government caught on, and they're like, oh shit, this is a great propaganda opportunity. Imagine what it would be like if every single plane was dropping candy out of it. So that's exactly what
this
they do.
is
They
really,
start dropping
really
a bunch
sweet,
of candy
man.
out of every plane, and then they make propaganda out of it. But then it gets bigger because all the American candy companies start sponsoring it and donating even more candy to drop. And then it gets bigger because all the kids in America and the UK start raising money at school to buy candy to give to the kids of Germany, and they're giving out even more candy. And the Soviets have to stand there and watch as the Americans and the British are not only flying in a literal Costco worth of shit into West Berlin every single day, but they're dropping candy out of their planes like it's a fucking parade the entire time. And this is all going on while East Germany and East Berlin is eating potatoes and standing in bread lines, and it makes the Soviets look like the biggest assholes on the planet. Because not only are the people of East Germany watching the Western world essentially move heaven and earth to help out West Berlin, they're also watching the Soviets be more interested in disrupting America and the UK from helping people than they are in helping the people of East Germany. In short, America and the UK are playing to win, and the Soviets are playing to not lose, and it is leading to a lower quality of life for all of East Germany. As it turns out, Sun Tzu was yet again correct when he said, the sun may rise in the east, but it sets in the west, and that's because West Side is the best side.
That's not what it means.
Really?
Not even close.
That might have been Ice Cube, actually. Anyways, so now in retaliation for all this, America and the UK and pretty much the entire Western world are going to put a bunch of embargoes on the Soviet Union and punish them financially and economically. Now, the Soviets absolutely cannot afford this, but they keep telling themselves it's okay, winter is coming, and as soon as winter gets here, they're not going to be able to land all these planes, and this whole thing's going to fall apart. We just have to wait out long enough for winter to slow down America and the UK. So that's what they do. They just try to shoulder the financial burden and wait for winter to come and put a stop to this entire thing. Winter comes, and winter, it does slow down some of the flights, but here's the catch. America was also developing bigger, better cargo planes, and now America isn't just flying the C-47, America's flying their new cargo plane, the C-74 Globemaster, and as opposed to the previous C-47 carrying only 3 tons, the Globemaster can carry 25. So despite the fact that weather can sometimes delay flights, America and the UK continue to improve and increase the amount of supplies that they are delivering daily. And by Easter Sunday, 1949, they would break their own record, landing 1,383 planes in a single day, delivering 13,000 tons of supplies, which is 26 million pounds, which obviously is like 11.8 million kilograms, or roughly 87 blue whales. Yeah, the United States Air Force and the RAF shipped 87 blue whales worth of crap into West Berlin in a single day. And because of this, it becomes very apparent to the Soviet Union that America can and will keep this shit up forever if they have to. And they are finally forced to give up the blockade because they cannot shoulder the financial burden anymore. And that would come down on May 12th, 1949. And with the roads and railways to West Berlin finally open once again, the Berlin Airlift would come to an end after 15 months, 277,000 flights, spanning 92,000 miles and delivering 2.3 million tons of aid, which is roughly 4.6 billion pounds or 15,333.333333 blue whales. This is the greatest logistical and humanitarian feat ever accomplished, and the Western world did it with communism doing everything it could to slow it down. So in conclusion, fuck communism.
Yeah, that is. That's the shirt.
Merch at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. This is warming my heart up.
And built a wall through the middle of Germany, and that's what we're gonna talk about next week.
Oh, he not done. Check it out, bro. I ain't gonna lie. This is probably one of the sweetest acts I've heard in a while, man. This is like, I mean, we're talking about scale here, bro. Like when he says the biggest logistical flex of all time, like, yeah, I mean, it really is, bro, because you're talking about the scope of things, man. Like people coming together like this on this scale is nuts, man. And I think it's really awesome. It reminds me of the 9/11 video I seen where people were helping each other and getting each other on boats and stuff. And it shows that when the time comes and when a bunch of people in need, bro, people will come together, man. And you know, it seems to be a thing that never fails, man. Like people will somehow, some way come together. And this really is awesome, bro. I ain't gonna lie, this brightened my whole day up, man. Like, depending on what mood I'm in, bro, you might even see some tears, man. I'm not sad today. I'm happy today. But man, I love seeing stuff like this, man. This is awesome to me. So never heard of this, never knew this even existed. And I do think this is something that should be talked about in our history books, bro. Like, because this shows an amazing side of the US, man. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. I'm out of here, man. I love y'all. Peace.